Tonight, a potential turning point when it comes to COVID-19, but the CDC is saying not so fast. New York, once the epicenter of the pandemic, dropping its mask or vaccine indoor mandate for businesses. Several other blue states and cities also relaxing COVID restrictions as Omicron cases and hospitalizations drop. However, the CDC warning against lifting those mandates, saying it's not time yet. War games, the new video of Russian missiles and jets arriving in Belarus as the two countries prepare to hold another round of military drills in a show of force not seen since the Cold War. Russian warships also moving into the Black Sea. But Ukraine's military is so outmatched, it's now asking private citizens for donations. Autopilot crash, the moment a Tesla in self-driving mode slams into a patrol car, sending it barreling towards officers. The driver of the Tesla allegedly watching a movie when the car went off the road. Drug handouts? The White House rejecting claims it's using taxpayer dollars for crack pipes as part of a $30 million funding plan to prevent overdoses. But the Justice Department is signaling support for safe injection sites. Our Priscilla Thompson visited one in New York City. How they claim they're making city streets safer. Record Bitcoin bust. The New York couple arrested for allegedly laundering billions of dollars from stolen cryptocurrency. And the training exercise turning into a real-life rescue when two teenagers plunged through a frozen lake. Top story starts right now. All right, and good evening. Top story in Los Angeles tonight, where the sun is shining and this town is getting hot for the Super Bowl. L.A., like cities all around the country, still dealing with the pandemic and now the mixed guidance on masks. On the East Coast, New York, once the epicenter of the virus, joining a growing list of states lifting mask mandates. Hospitalizations in New York down more than 60% following the worst of the Omicron surge. The rest of the country seen a similar trend. And COVID cases nationwide have dropped 44% compared to just last week. However, many school districts are asking to keep mask mandates in place, and the CDC is still urging Americans to wear face coverings inside, saying, quote, "We're not there yet." Let's get right to NBC's Gabe Gutierrez, who leads us off tonight.
Tonight, the era of sweeping COVID mandates seems to be over. New York today joining a growing number of blue states and cities, rolling back COVID restrictions as Omicron wanes, dropping its mask or vaccine requirement for businesses.
We're not surrendering. This is not disarmament. We're going to continue to be adaptable and responsive to the changing circumstances.
Nationwide, the 7-day average of cases is down 44% and hospitalizations down 25% since the previous week. The White House today said planning is underway for the next, less restrictive phase of the COVID response. Still, the CDC has not changed its mask guidance and still recommends wearing them indoors.
Our death rates are still high. So as we work towards that and as we are encouraged by the current trends, we are not there yet.
Once again, there'll be a patchwork of COVID policies across the country as cities consider whether to continue their own restrictions.
It's been getting a lot more back to what it used to be.
Massachusetts today announced it was dropping its mask mandate for schools later this month, but New York's governor put off any final decision on that until early March.
And I really think they should let the kids take them off now.
It's way too soon. It's still not everyone's vaccinated.
The moves by some Democratic politicians reflect a shift ahead of this year's midterm elections. In Virginia, 10 Democrats in the state Senate just joined Republicans in passing an amendment that would give parents the right to choose whether their children wear masks in schools.
I think over the last few months, voters have felt like we've entered a new phase of the pandemic, and they're looking at this longer term. They're not looking at this as the crisis that it was.
Throughout much of the pandemic, tempers have flared over COVID restrictions. Even today, Canadian truckers are still clogging routes to the U.S. in protest. In Congress, Republican Hal Rogers is apologizing to his Democratic colleague Joyce Beatty after cursing at her when she asked him to wear a mask on board a train.
We want civility here in the Congress, but we will not allow that type of behavior to be met without accountability.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez joins us now from our top story set there in New York. Gabe, we got some news today on when a COVID vaccine might be available for the youngest children, ages 6 months to 5 years. I know you have some new reporting on this.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. An FDA advisory panel is set to meet and vote next week on emergency use authorization for Pfizer vaccine for those youngest children. If everything goes well, the CDC says we could see shots in arms by President's Day, Tom.
All right, Gabe Gutierrez leading us off tonight here on Top Story. As states look to embrace a new normal and drop mask mandates nearly 2 years into the pandemic, I want to bring in Dr. Richard Besser now. He's the former acting director of the CDC and the current president of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Dr. Besser, you know, besides those two jobs, you were also a journalist at one point. We worked together, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on tonight, because you can kind of cut through the noise. So I think the question I want to ask you tonight is, what do you think of the states moving to end the mask mandates? Does the science support this, or do you think leaders are giving in to public fatigue?
You know, Tom, this is a really challenging point in the pandemic. I think it's an inflection point. And what we're seeing is that states are responding to a number of things. They're responding to the decline in cases caused by Omicron. You know, I'm here in New Jersey, and we were one of the states that got hit early by that. And we're seeing a dramatic decline in that. The states that have announced the change to school mask mandates all fit in that category. But we're also seeing a situation in which we're reflecting on what the impact is of children wearing masks in school. You know, I'm a pediatrician, and one of the things that I have looked on really favorably this fall is that there's been a major effort to keep kids in school learning, despite the fact that the pandemic has been raging. And that's been done by putting in place a number of protections: mask wearing, social distancing, improving ventilation, and encouraging people to get vaccinated. With the Omicron variant, it's appearing like wearing cloth masks does not have the same level of protection as it did for some of the other variants. But there are higher level masks, KN95s, that can provide some protection. But one of the things that we see with COVID in young children is that the impact is much less severe than it is in older people. And so if there's a way to remove the mask mandate for young children so they can get back to a much more normal existence in school, while remaining protected in situations where they need to be protected, that's a way to go. But this kind of period right now that we're in, where we're seeing some states that are still very high in the level of disease transmission, others that are seeing reductions, and communities that are choosing different approaches here, will be very confusing until we get to a much more of a steady state.
Yeah, speaking of the confusion, I just want to give you two examples because I think this is going to lead to a lot of fights. This morning, you know, New York drops the mask mandate. I go to the airport. You have to wear your mask inside the airport. California is going to drop the mask mandate eventually. I think it's next week. But fans at the Super Bowl this week are going to have to be wearing masks. Do you think there's going to be a problem now with these mask mandates dropping and people just getting confused over the rules?
Well, I think it's a time for everyone to take a deep breath and recognize that there will be confusion. They will be exposed to different things in different places. You know, I go to New York City very frequently on the weekend, and there, to go into a restaurant, I must show my proof of vaccination. I come back to New Jersey, I don't need to do that. I ensure that I always have a mask with me, and I wear them when I go indoors. Right now, in this transition period, you have a lot more personal choice. And so if you're an individual who's at greater risk of having severe infection, this is a time to keep wearing those masks. Wear that KN95 mask, which does provide individual protection. If you're a parent and you're sending your child to school, I encourage you to get your child vaccinated. If your child is at greater risk of having severe infection, have them wear a mask. We need to make sure that even in schools that are going to be lifting mask mandates, that children are welcome to continue to wear those masks. But I can tell you, as a pediatrician, a young child who's learning to speak, who's learning language, who can't see a teacher's face, who can't see their mouth, a child who may have a hearing impairment, who can't see someone's mouth, that's a real disadvantage for them in the school. And so if it's safe to do so, moving towards removing masks, I think is something definitely worth considering.
All right, Dr. Richard Besser for us tonight. Dr. Besser, thank you. We want to head overseas now to that growing crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Vladimir Putin moving 30,000 troops into Belarus. inching them closer and closer to Ukraine's capital city and stirring fears of an invasion. The troops there for war games with Belarusian forces, part of the largest deployment to the former Soviet state since the Cold War. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley reports tonight from Ukraine.
Tonight, in a massive show of force not seen since the Cold War, 30,000 Russian troops now stationed in Belarus for joint military exercises, stoking fears of an invasion of neighboring Ukraine. Belarusian paratroopers carrying out shooting exercises in the dead of night, preparing for full-scale war games with Russia starting tomorrow. Heavy artillery, including 2 battalions of S-400 surface-to-air missile systems and 12 fighter jets, brought in for the drills, which Russia is calling Allied Resolve. But the U.S. and NATO warning these drills could all be a thinly veiled diversion and an excuse to move troops closer to Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, which sits less than 90 miles from the Belarus border. Russia also closing in on Ukraine by sea, moving 6 of its warships into the Black Sea. NATO forces bolstering their presence in the region, holding war games of their own in Estonia in an attempt to deter a Russian invasion.
We do our job like we always do, and it's to defend our country the best way we can.
The U.S. stepping up pressure on Russia, too, deploying nearly 2,000 troops to the region, stationing 1,700 of them in Poland, just over 60 miles from Ukraine's border, and moving another 1,000 from Germany to Romania.
Together, we will assure our allies, deter our adversaries, and stand ready to defend the NATO alliance.
Those allied forces potentially staring down a massive offensive, with as many as 100,000 Russian troops surrounding Ukraine on all sides, according to NATO estimates.
All right, Matt joins us now from Kharkiv in northeastern Ukraine. Matt, you know, there's been a lot of talk in recent days about the Minsk agreement, right? We hear this a lot from Putin. It basically created that path to end Russia's conflict with Ukraine back in 2015. The 4 nations that were behind this, right? Russia, Ukraine, Germany, and France, they're set to meet tomorrow in Berlin. What's the thinking? Will this solve anything?
Yeah, I mean, the real problem with this, Tom, is that there's one big invitee that's not going to be there, and that's the United States. And when we saw Emmanuel Macron, the French president, trying his best to resolve this crisis over the past several days, shuttling between Moscow and Kyiv, we actually heard straight from the Kremlin saying it doesn't look like Macron could have inked any real diplomatic deals because he's not backed by the real major player here, by the United States. Tom?
Matt Bradley tonight with the Kremlin's take on the world diplomatic efforts to prevent war. All right, Matt, thank you for that. Back here at home in the ongoing debate about Tesla's autopilot feature. Newly released dashcam video shows the vehicle hitting a North Carolina deputy's cruiser, sending it towards 2 officers while in that autopilot mode. This just a week after the company recalled more than 50,000 vehicles over safety concerns related to the self-driving feature. Kathy Park has more.
Newly released dashcam video shows another frightening Tesla crash, this time in North Carolina. A Nash County Sheriff's Office patrol car is hit by a Tesla going nearly 70 miles per hour using the car's autopilot mode in August of 2020. That patrol car hitting a sheriff's deputy before rolling down into a nearby ditch. Officials tell our Raleigh affiliate WRAL the driver, a doctor, was watching a movie on his phone.
I lived down for a minute.
This incident, just one of 11 crashes the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is investigating, involving Teslas on autopilot hitting first responder vehicles. The preliminary evaluation highlights that many of these incidents happened at night, including this one from last year. A Florida State Highway Patrol vehicle was hit by another Tesla on autopilot. A nearby officer in that crash also jumping out of the way just in time. Last week, Tesla recalled tens of thousands of vehicles for an issue federal regulators found with the car's rolling stop function in full self-driving mode, finding it may cause cars to run stop signs at up to 5.6 miles per hour.
Oh no, oh no. Look at that.
One beta tester for the full self-driving feature, who highlighted some of his concerns, spoke to NBC News last week.
Tesla historically and notoriously pushes the envelope. I don't know how much longer regulators will put up with it.
On Tesla's website, the company warns that current autopilot features require active driver supervision and do not make the vehicle autonomous. Back in North Carolina, the Nash County Sheriff has his own warning about these semi-autonomous vehicles.
Automation cannot do everything. It's not enhancing our safety, and in this situation, it could have killed 2 law enforcement agents.
Both officers escaped serious injury, but critics worry that luck could run out. Kathy Park, NBC News.
All right, glad those officers are okay. We thank Kathy for that report. We want to turn now to the sports world. We are tonight here in Los Angeles because of the Super Bowl. And tonight, the NFL facing allegations of racism just days before the big game. Commissioner Roger Goodell today acknowledging that the league needs to improve its hiring practices for minority coaches. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has the latest.
With the stage now set for the Super Bowl, today the NFL faces blistering headlines tarnishing the league's reputation.
We're not doing a good enough job here.
Under scrutiny, Commissioner Roger Goodell says the NFL will address long-standing concerns and a lawsuit filed by former head coach Brian Flores that the league's unfair hiring practices keeps minorities out of top jobs amid accusations of systemic racism.
We won't tolerate racism. We won't tolerate discrimination. If there are policies that we need to modify, we're going to do that.
In a league where 70% of players are minorities, only 3 minority coaches head the NFL's 32 teams.
You don't need a lawsuit to see that there's a problem, and I think the numbers speak for themselves.
With the Miami Dolphins also accused of trying to lose games for better draft picks spelled out in this lawsuit, the team's owner denies the allegation.
I learned from another high-level executive that I should wear low-cut blouses.
Last week, Congress heard allegations of sexual harassment off the field with the Washington Commanders football team. Those allegations also denied.
We need to understand what really truly happened in those circumstances and treat that in the best and most serious way we can to make sure we preserve the type of culture we want in the NFL.
All right, Miguel Almaguer joins us now live in studio here in L.A. So, Miguel, you know, at that news conference you were just telling me, Goodell was asked. He's been commissioner 15 years. This issue with race has been happening for 10 years. What was his answer?
Well, Goodell said the league himself, they need to do a better job at addressing this issue. But he also kind of deflected by saying he's not an owner of a football team. He can't make the hiring. But he admits that hiring practices need to improve, and they need to improve immediately.
All right, we're days away from the Super Bowl. We're here tonight because the Super Bowl's in L.A. This is your town, Miguel. Is the city ready? Is the area ready?
Certainly. You know, there's been a lot of excitement. It's been building over the last couple of weeks. But when the Rams actually made it into the Super Bowl, the city kind of turned the corner and began to really explode. There's a lot of excitement out on the streets. There's going to be a lot of security out on the streets over the next couple of days, Tom.
Still ahead tonight, the car fire warning. Kia and Hyundai recalling nearly 500,000 vehicles and urging owners to keep the cars outside over fears they could burst into flames. What you need to know. Plus, ice rescue. Take a look at this. The moment first responders were in training, and then they had to turn their focus to 2 teenagers who had actually plunged through a frozen lake. We'll show you all the video. And stealing Bitcoin. The New York couple charged in a multi-billion-dollar cryptocurrency scheme. Stay with us. Top story in L.A. Just getting started. All right, we are back now with the latest on the country's biggest Bitcoin bust. The Justice Department seizing more than $3 billion related to a massive Bitcoin hack in 2016. And tonight we're learning more about the New York couple arrested in this historic case. NBC's Dasha Burns has more.
Tonight, the biggest Bitcoin bust in U.S. history.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, hodl.
Features a New York City couple with a penchant for posting.
Crocodile of Wall Street. Silver on my fingers and boots on my feet.
31-year-old Heather Morgan, also known by her rap name Razzle Khan, and husband, 34-year-old Ilya Dutch Lichtenstein, arrested by the U.S. Department of Justice in connection with a 2016 hack of a virtual currency exchange. The DOJ also seizing $3.6 billion in cryptocurrency, its largest financial seizure ever, according to officials. According to court documents obtained by NBC News, Liechtenstein and Morgan are alleged to have conspired to launder the proceeds of bitcoins that were stolen in a hack of Bitfinex in 2016.
The couple that was attempting to launder those funds, the Deputy Attorney General explained that they tried through what she describes as a flurry or a storm of transactions to hide the trail of the money.
Morgan's LinkedIn describing her as a, quote, serial entrepreneur. Liechtenstein says he's the founder of a blockchain startup. The couple appearing here together at a virtual workshop for Morgan's sales consulting company, Salesfolk.
Thanks for talking with us today.
In a statement released after the arrest of Morgan and Liechtenstein, an assistant attorney general for the DOJ said, "We will not allow cryptocurrency to be a safe haven for money laundering or a zone of lawlessness within our financial system." In a statement, Bitfinex said, quote, "We've been cooperating extensively with the DOJ since its investigation began and will continue to do so."
In the words of Deputy Attorney General herself, this announcement is very much proof that crypto is not a safe haven for criminals. For the industry, it's a very clear, and another example of many that it's not a game of ask for forgiveness and not permission.
The digital rebellion is here. Old money is out.
Cryptocurrency hitting the mainstream in recent months.
I'm getting into crypto.
With FTX. You in?
Even celebrities getting into the mix.
Fortune favors the brave.
But that spike in popularity raising security concerns about the digital currencies. Kim Kardashian and Floyd Mayweather are among celebrities getting scrutiny for their promotion of crypto. A lawsuit filed earlier this month in California accusing them of pumping a little-known currency Ethereum as part of a scheme to profit and defraud investors.
If people are interested in getting into this world of cryptocurrency, what do they need to keep in mind?
Regulation is still evolving and you have to be careful. You have to do your due diligence. It is, at the moment, still a higher risk a place to put your money. Do your research.
Every night we hear the same advice here on Top Story. You got to be careful when you go into crypto. Dasha joins us now from our Top Story studios there in New York. Dasha, the Bitfinex hack happened 6 years ago. So I have to ask you, how is the FBI able to make these arrests now?
Yeah, Tom, this is so interesting. This is where some experts say that the government actually benefits from blockchain technology because it's more transparent, it's more traceable than traditional currency. The way the technology works is you can actually track those transactions. Anyone can. That data is available. So it would have been much more difficult to recover this kind of sum with, say, the dollar. And this was indeed the biggest financial seizure in DOJ history, Tom.
The largest financial seizure in DOJ history. All right, Dasha, thank you for that. When we come back, the battle from within. The strong comments from Senator Mitch McConnell about the January 6th insurrection. Could it signal a split between the GOP leadership and the Republican National Committee? Meet the Press moderator, Chuck Todd, joins Top Story tonight. And the drug bust on the high seas the moment Colombia intercepted a submarine transporting 4 tons of cocaine. Stay with us. All right, back now with Top Story's news feed. 3 women are suing Harvard, alleging the school ignored sexual harassment allegations. In a federal lawsuit, the graduate students say the university did not investigate their repeated complaints against a professor. One woman accusing him of groping and forcibly kissing her dating back to 2017. The accusers also say the professor also threatened to ruin their careers if they continued reporting him. A training exercise turned into a real-life rescue for fire responders in Missouri. Take a look at this video. Firefighters and paramedics were training on a frozen lake near St. Louis. You see it right there when their chief watched 2 teens fall through the ice. Rescuers tethering themselves to crews on land and getting into the frigid water to pull the teens to safety. They were taken to the hospital but are expected to be okay. Kia and Hyundai are recalling nearly 500,000 vehicles over fire concerns. The companies say the cars can catch fire even if the engines are turned off. Several models are affected, including Kia Sportage SUVs and Hyundai Santa Fe's. Safety regulators are urging customers to park their vehicles outside and away from structures until repairs are made. Nearly a dozen fires have been reported already. You can find more information at NBCNews.com. All right, and employees at Dolly Parton's amusement park could soon get their college tuition for free. Dollywood's parent company Hershend Enterprises announced a new program to provide education opportunities to its 11,000 employees across its 25 U.S. locations. It covers tuition and book costs for select programs. Full-time, part-time, and even seasonal employees will be eligible. All right, now to our new series, Power and Politics, the biggest headlines from Washington and beyond. Leaders of the Republican Party are speaking out about the censorship of Representative Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger by the Republican National Committee. And the RNC claims that January rioters engaged in, quote, legitimate political discourse. We want to play some sound for you now. Here's Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell rejecting that wording, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy speaking to our Garrett Haake on this topic after dodging reporters yesterday.
Well, let me give you my view of what happened January the 6th. And we're here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was.
I think anybody, and we all know this, that entered this building that rioted is not legitimate discourse, but I don't think that's what the RNC was talking about when they talked to him.
So do you agree with the decision to censure then?
The RNC has the ability to, I think there's a reason why Adam is not running again. I think there's a reason why at the end of the day, Liz would have a hard time winning here if she wins. I don't think she would.
All right, let's bring in NBC News political director and moderator of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd. Chuck, let's just get to the core of this. You have the leader of the RNC and the highest-ranking Senate Republican, and I would argue maybe the highest-ranking House Republican, not on the same page. Is this going to really affect the RNC right now?
Well, it all depends on whether you think the RNC, how important you believe the RNC is inside the Republican Party. Symbolically, it is still the leading organization in the Republican Party, but there are multiple power centers, and it's clear right now that the RNC is a power center that belongs to Donald Trump and really does not, Mitch McConnell and to a lesser extent Kevin McCarthy, neither one of them really have that much influence, and less so than ever before. I mean, the RNC of today is so much different than it was just 10 years ago, let alone 15 when it was the George W. Bush version of the Republican Party running the RNC. So this is a case where the Trump wing of the party sort of controls that official apparatus. But the real question is, and you saw what Mitch McConnell is doing in his own way of pushing back, he is concerned that the only thing standing in the way of Republicans regaining power in Congress are fellow Republicans who are fighting this lost cause of Donald Trump's. And I think that is what explains why he felt the need to publicly make it clear that he doesn't agree with what the RNC did.
You know, Chuck, we can talk about this. I think there can be maybe a danger or there could be a lack of usefulness if you overanalyze this. If we draw a line from Senator Mitch McConnell to Donald Trump, where do you think Republicans are right now? Because, you know, at the end of the day, Republicans are going to agree they don't want Joe Biden, they don't want Democrats. But the bigger question is, which primary candidates do they nominate, right? So where do you think the party is right now?
Yeah. You know, if it's a binary choice, you know, or do you associate more with Trump or with McConnell, a majority of this party is going to associate more with Trump. But that would be misleading if you made it a binary choice. You know, look, Mitch McConnell is unpopular with some pieces of the Republican Party because he's a Washington leader, because he's been there a long time, and now because Donald Trump has told his followers, you shouldn't like him. But it's not as if Donald Trump's grip is tightening on the party. You know, his support is deep, but it is not as broad as it was even just a year ago. Starting with January 6th, the number of Republicans that associate more with Trump than the Republican Party continues to go down, Tom. In fact, I think we've talked about this previously. And I do think that these 2022 midterms, while there will mostly be a referendum on the Democrats in power and Joe Biden in the White House, the next biggest sort of line that they're going to sort of help us figure out where it is Mitch McConnell more influential in the party or is Donald Trump? And at the end of 2022, we're going to find out.
Speaking about the midterms, and, you know, the polling already shows Democrats are in trouble. History would have shown us that anyway because they're the party in power. But I want to ask you, is there anyone on the Republican side working behind the scenes, basically saying, like, listen, guys, we can have our fights now, but we need to get on the same page before November?
They tried. This was attempted 6 months ago, 9 months ago. That's over now. Trump is sort of in his own world on this election stuff, and Mitch McConnell is done with it. Now, they do make peace in some places. For instance, in Georgia, Mitch McConnell thinks Herschel Walker is a terrible idea. But Trump put him there, and they didn't find anybody that could stop him in a primary. So that's one of the cases where they're both endorsing the same guy. But for the most part, they're working against each other in these places where they're competitive primary. Trump is looking for the person that's going to be most loyal to him, and McConnell is simply looking for the person he thinks has the best shot at actually winning the Senate race. It is going to be in those places, the Ohios, the Pennsylvanias, where I think we will get an idea, and even maybe the Nevadas, and maybe even that Georgia race. It'll tell us whether Trump can actually get to McConnell in the Senate in his leadership position or not.
Chuck Todd for us tonight here on Top Story. We want to stick with politics now and the controversy erupting over the Biden administration's new plan to fight drug overdoses by providing safety kits that include drug paraphernalia. Conservatives attacking the plan, saying it will provide crack pipes to drug addicts. The White House today denying those reports. It comes as more Americans are dying from overdoses than ever before. Priscilla Thompson has more.
We got two words for America today: crack pipes.
Tonight, the Biden administration responding to allegations that taxpayer dollars would be used to provide crack pipes.
They were never a part of the kit. It was inaccurate reporting, and we wanted to put out information to make that clear.
The clarification comes amid headlines and Republican outrage over a provision in the new Biden administration American Rescue Plan that allocates millions for overdose prevention and harm reduction services that include safe smoking kits.
This administration is now going to spend $30 million from hardworking taxpayers on buying crack pipes for drug addicts.
Currently, overdose prevention sites hand out safe smoking kits that sometimes include pipes.
This is the stem, the crack stem, made out of Pyrex, so they're a lot stronger.
The White House now emphasizing that was never part of their plan and calling the Republican criticism, quote, political.
We're losing an American life every 5 minutes to overdose. We don't have time for political games.
Sam Rivera is in charge of an overdose prevention site in New York City, one of the first in the nation that opened last November.
Republicans are saying taxpayers' dollars are being used to hand out crack pipes. What is your message to them?
Taxpayer dollars are being used for safe consumption supplies that keep people alive.
Safe smoking kits are among a dozen items organizations could use the $30 million in funding for, including overdose reversal medications like Narcan, vaccination services, and syringes.
The hope was we would intervene in 130 overdoses in a year, and we're up to 135 right now.
And how long has it been?
Only 2 months.
Now, new reports that the Department of Justice may allow more of these sites as overdose deaths continue to skyrocket. 100,000 people died of drug overdoses from June 2020 to 2021, up 30%. Overdoses cost the U.S. about $1 trillion annually, according to government estimates. The majority caused by fentanyl, a synthetic opioid, something that advocates say safe injection sites with the right supplies may help change.
We've been fighting for this for 30 years. It happened. We're going to prove them right, as we have been proving them right here.
All right, Priscilla Thompson joins us now from 30 Rock in New York. Priscilla, you know, on one hand, you visited a site where crack pipes are included in these kits, but the Biden administration is saying this government funding can't be used for that. So what exactly is going on?
Right, Tom. When the Biden administration initially announced this funding, they did not say what could and could not be included in those safe smoking kits. They are now clarifying that. However, I do think pipes are still going to be included in those kits. Obviously, folks cannot use government funding for that, and so they may use the government funding for the dozen other items on the list that they can buy and use an alternate method of funding for those pipes. But advocates on the ground tell me that those pipes are just as important as the syringes that they offer, and they don't hear people up in arms about that. Tom?
All right, Priscilla Thompson with some up-close reporting tonight. Priscilla, we appreciate it. Now to Top Stories Global Watch. A man has been arrested for, get this, raping a woman on an international flight. Police say the alleged attack happened in business class on a United Airlines flight from Newark, New Jersey to London last week. The flight crew notified authorities before landing, and the 40-year-old suspect was taken into custody at the airport. All right, we're also following some breaking news out of Colombia tonight, where a deadly car bombing has been reported at a military base. The governor of Meta, near Bogotá, sharing these images from the attack on Twitter. At least 2 people killed and 4 injured. The governor calling it a terror attack, but so far no one has claimed responsibility. And also, staying in Colombia, a drug bust on the high seas. Check out this video. It shows members of the Colombian Navy opening up a submarine that was intercepted in the Pacific. More than 4 tons of cocaine was found on board. Officials say the 200 seized packages hold a street value of $150 million. 4 suspected drug traffickers were arrested. All right, coming up, the dangerous journey to the U.S. Several migrant children rescued after nearly drowning while trying to cross the Rio Grande. The growing crisis as more families try to cross the border. Stay with us. All right, we are back now with the Americas, where we look at stories coming out of the U.S. and across Latin America. Tonight, 6 migrant children are safe after being rescued from the Rio Grande on Monday. The minors getting caught in the treacherous current while trying to cross on their own. Now, the Mexican government saying they've been reunited with their mothers. But unfortunately, not all river crossings end safely. Zincle Esamwa has more.
Tonight, out of the icy waters of the Rio Grande, 6 children nearly drowned in an attempt to cross the U.S. border, according to Mexican officials. Their small bodies covered in blankets as they were rescued in the town of Piedras Negras, Coahuila, on Monday. The current dragging the children just before all 6 kids were saved by the police and fire department. According to Mexico's National Migration Institute, or INM, the children were just 5, 7, 10, 11, 14, and 15. They received first aid in ambulances, then were taken to a hospital and treated for hypothermia, according to Dr. Salvador Chavarria Sanchez General Hospital. Their story, now one of many shared by migrants attempting to cross the U.S. border.
I'd rather risk the river dragging me, taking me away, happen what may, but never return to my country.
According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, since October 2021, the CBP registered over 500,000 enforcement actions in the country, with over 3,000 Southwest border search and rescue efforts. The Missing Migrants Project found 2021 was the deadliest year for migrant crossings in the Americas since the group began tracking. The Rio Grande, also known as Rio Bravo, makes up the border of Texas and Mexico, nearly 2,000 miles long. Sadly, not all failed crossings of the river have ended in rescue. In 2019 alone, 109 people lost their lives in the Rio Grande River. And last month, the body of a young girl was pulled from that body of water after an unsuccessful attempt to cross.
Why here, and do we really know the numbers?
We don't really know the number of people who have died. A lot of people cross at night when there's no law enforcement presence. The Rio Grande is a very broad river, subject to flash floods. And very treacherous.
In the case of the 6 children, INM says after the rescue, 3 adult women arrived on the scene, their mothers. Their identities verified by humanitarian visas, according to officials. INM says the mothers of the rescued children requested to be transferred as a family unit to their next location.
All right, Zincle joins us now live from New York. Zincle, talk to me about the demographics of people who are crossing, because it has changed over the years.
Yeah, Tom, that's right. Increasingly, officials say there are more families and kids crossing. CBP data show us that the number of minors, family units, and unaccompanied children has actually steadily increased over the last 3 years. And the expert I spoke with, Andrew Arthur, said historically it's adult men who attempt to journey across the southwest border. But since 2014, he says under the Obama administration, those demographics have changed. Tom?
All right, Zincle, thank you. When we come back, the surprise of a lifetime, the 12-year-old Bengals fan now heading to the Super Bowl, how a tweet got him to the big game, and the incredible moment he found out. Stay with us. Finally tonight, a Super Bowl surprise for one young Bengals superfan, getting to see his team make the Super Bowl for the first time in his life, but thanks to his mother and with a little help from his community. This Sunday, he'll be doing more than just watching it on TV.
Is there one really huge Bengal fan in here?
It's no secret that 12-year-old Isaac Meekum, who lives near Cincinnati, is a massive Bengals fan.
I tell you, I found something at the bottom of the box here.
And this week, while sitting in math class, he got the surprise of a lifetime.
Isaac's going to the Super Bowl!
It was surprising. I didn't know anything about that. But I didn't think it would have anything to do with me specifically, and then it did.
His mom, Missy, a teacher at the school, had sent a Hail Mary tweet to a Super Bowl giveaway on Twitter. Missy writing in part that her son has worn Bengals shirts and masks every day the last month, including in the tweet a pic of Isaac and his sister crying after the team clinched their Super Bowl spot.
I sent it out knowing that nothing would probably happen from that. But then all of a sudden, last week, we had a snow day at school. And while we were sledding, I got a message saying, check your Twitter, check your phone calls.
A local company that happened to have 2 Super Bowl tickets saw Missy's tweet and decided Isaac deserved the tickets. With the help of Missy and the school, the company turned a boring Tuesday into a moment Isaac will never forget.
I think we're feeling the how important this moment is for our family, for the school, for our whole community. You know, couldn't have happened to a better kid.
Like, it feels like, man, we're not doing well, but 2 years later, we're in the Super Bowl. Well, anything's possible with football and in the Bengals.
We're excited for you.
All right, we're so happy for Isaac. We hope he loves the game. Not sure who's going to win, but he's definitely going to have a good time being there. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in Los Angeles. We'll see you from the site of the Super Bowl tomorrow night. Good night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.